Hi, this is Stephanie Powers. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television. Always happy to welcome back our friend Tom Lisanti. Tom Lisanti, award-winning author of more than 10 books on movies and television from the 60s and 70s. Plus, you've seen Tom on Turner Movie Classics, as well as the documentary The Green Girl, about the life and career of Susan Oliver. And I understand Tom will be seen in a forthcoming documentary about novelist and screenwriter Terry Southern. Tom's latest book, Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap, tells you everything you want to know about the Emmy Award-winning daytime drama originally aired on ABC from 1975 to 1989 from the perspective of more than 46 actors, writers, producers, and other creative personnel who worked behind the scenes of Ryan's Hope. Ryan's Hope, one of the first daytime dramas to be set in a real city, New York City, within a very recognizable neighborhood and a very recognizable community, and which depicted the trials and tribulations of a working-class family of Irish Catholic immigrants, although one did not necessarily have to be Irish or Catholic or an immigrant or from an immigrant family to enjoy Ryan's Hope. Ryan's Hope also often a very topical series with stellar writing that was known to tackle such issues as infidelity, addiction, religious faith, and women's rights. We'll tell you where you can find Ryan's Hope and Oral History in just a second. Tom Lisanti, welcome back to our program.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me back.
Also on the line with us is Emmy Award-winning actress, screenwriter, and novelist Louise Shaffer. Louise won an Emmy for playing Ray Woodard on Ryan's Hope, a character that she played for 6 years. She later wrote for Ryan's Hope for what turned out to be the last 2 seasons of Ryan's Hope on ABC. Louise Shaffer has also starred in several other soap operas, including Search for Tomorrow, The Edge of Night, and All My Children. I understand Louise played Erica Kane's evil stepmother on All My Children. Louise also wrote for several other soap operas, including General Hospital, Loving, and As the World Turns, and is the author of at least 7 novels, which you can find Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. Louise Shaffer's appearance today, courtesy of Tom Lisanti. Louise Shaffer, welcome to TV Confidential.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to start with Tom as far as Ryan's Hope is concerned, but before we do that, I have to tell you, Louise, your author bio at Amazon.com is one of the most entertaining author bios I have ever read.
Really?
Normally an author bio is like a 1 or 2 sentence thing where you just say Louise Shaffer is an Emmy Award-winning writer. She lives in so-and-so and she's written such and such. But you give readers a sense of who you are as a person. I laughed out loud after I read it.
Aw. Well, I used to be an actress, and I think I kind of did it the way you would do your bio in a playbill if you were doing a show.
Well,
I think I put it together that way.
Well, look, you're a writer at heart, and you know this better than anybody else. One of the things a writer hopes to do is evoke some sort of response, some sort of reaction from the people who are reading their work, whether it's a novel, whether it's an episode of Ryan's Hope, or whether it's your author bio. So the fact that you evoked a reaction from me, that tells me you know what you're doing as a writer.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm glad you had the reaction.
Okay. There are several ways we can start this conversation. I'll just start with this, Tom. What's fun is I understand your interest in Ryan's Hope began kind of sort of, or is linked kind of sort of with your interest in Carol Lynley.
Yes, in 1980, I was a freshman at Nassau Community College, and I commuted, from home, and had a big break between classes during the spring semester. And one day I bought lunch, and I got home, and I turned the TV on, and as I was flipping through the channels, I saw this pretty blonde that looked like Carol Lynley, who was a big fan of, and fancy restaurant in Central Park, and she wasn't sure what was going to happen, and if the Ryan family found out that she was in cahoots with the mobster, she'd be in big trouble. And I just kept watching it, not knowing what I was watching. And then the credits rolled, and it said Ryan's Hope. And I was like, Ryan's Hope? That's a soap opera. And I didn't know soap operas had mobsters on them now. And that was the start of me watching it. And that was pre-VCR, so I would watch it the 2 or 3 days when I had those breaks. And my grandmother was a huge ABC fan, surprisingly. And usually older women of her generation watched the CBS or the NBC shows. But my grandma watched ABC from Ryan's Hope all the way down to the edge of night at 4 o'clock. And I would call her up, and she would fill me in on what I missed. And she knew I loved Delia. That was Randall Edwards was the blonde, and she played the scheming Delia. And he would always fill me in, and that was the start of me watching Ryan.
So did you ever imagine X number of years later that you'd have a chance to not only talk to Louise, but talk to, close to 50 other people who helped bring Ryan's Hope? Did you ever imagine you might do that one of these days?
Back then, no. I mean, I would buy Soap Opera Digest and get, sucked into the whole world of soap operas. Because the part-time job that I got shortly after that was in a bank filing mortgages, and the vault where the mortgages was in the basement where the electionette was it had a TV, and the ladies would come down to watch the TV during their lunch break. So the 12 o'clock crowd would watch Family Feud and Ryan's Hope. The 1 o'clock crowd came down for All My Children, and the 2 o'clock crowd came down for One Life to Live. So I got sucked into those because I would sit there at my desk and do these mortgage things watching the TV. So I got sucked into All My Children and One Life to Live, and that's how my love of soap operas just kept growing and growing. Between my school break and that job I had at that got me with soap operas.
Tom Lisanti's latest book, Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap, everything you want to know about the Emmy Award-winning daytime drama that originally aired on ABC from 1975 to 1989, as brought to you from the perspective of the people who worked on Ryan's Hope, who brought you Ryan's Hope. Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap, available wherever books are sold. Through Kensington Books. You can also find it at Amazon.com. One of the people that Tom talked to and who shares many memories of her years on Ryan's Hope is Emmy Award-winning actress Louise Shaffer, Ray Woodard on Ryan's Hope. And Tom brought up something, Louise, he brought up the first thing that hooked him when he first watched the show was the mob backstory. From what I understand, that touches on part of the appeal of Ryan's Hope to begin with. It was very, very concrete. It was very, very concrete, and that attracted viewers. Did that attract you to the show when you first joined the cast?
Well, I have worked with Paul and Claire.
Paul and Claire being Paul Mayer and Claire Labine, the co-creators of Ryan's Hope.
On Where the Heart Is, which was a show that they took over. They did not create that show. But yeah, the whole ethos of that show actually appealed to me a lot. Because it was New York based, it was based in a real place. They owned a bar. That had, as far as I knew, had never happened before. There were real religious and ethnic backgrounds. Jackson Ellie was Italian. They did a story about a Jewish family. So for me, it was very much reality based, and as a New Yorker, a reality that I absolutely loved. So all of that, in addition to the fact that for me, Claire Labine was one of the greatest dialogue writers who existed in our medium. I mean, if you got a Claire Labine script or a Claire Labine edited script, 3/4 of your job as an actor was done for you. So all of she had a reality. She wasn't just kind of amorphously rich. She had reasons. She had a background to the money that she had. So for all of those reasons, yeah, that was what attracted me to the show.
I know that oftentimes when an actor joins a primetime series after 1 or 2 years, it could be challenging because you're the new kid on the block and you have to figure out your way. How do you fit into the dynamics of this successful series? Do the same challenges come into play when you join a daytime show, or does it depend on which show and what environment you're entering into?
I think it depends a lot on the actor. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, look, you spend the first few weeks trying to figure out where the ladies' room is. You have that kind of challenge. But, I never was really aware of that kind of thing, because I always used to just walk on that set really determined to play the scenes. And for me, that job was understanding what I wanted. That's how I work as an actor. You understand what you want, what your character wants, and therefore you, because I believe in working in the first person. So it was kind of like if there was a lot of that stuff going on around me, I didn't really notice it. I tend to be a bad source of gossip about the show that I'm on. I'm not really paying attention to anything except what my character wants to accomplish for the day. I'm very boring that way.
Well, I would say you're very focused. You're very linear in your approach, and that's part of what makes you a good actress.
Well, thank you. It's the only way I know how to survive, and particularly when you're doing daytime, where, remember, we're shooting in one day what prime time takes a week to 10 days to shoot, and a movie can take God knows how many weeks or months.
Which underscores one of the things I wanted to ask you. I confessed before we started talking on the air, folks, that I'm not an aficionado of daytime drama, but I have talked to enough actors who worked on daytime shows to understand, appreciate just how hard you work on that show, whether you're doing a 30-minute show, a daily 30-minute show, or a daily 60-minute show. You still got to memorize new pages every day with virtually zero notice. And it also goes for, it's not just you, the actors, who work very hard, but also the people behind the scenes who help you work very hard. I have a great appreciation for that, Louise.
Thank you. I'm glad you do. Because, we were sort of like the stepchildren of the industry a lot. Not so much now, I think, the remaining shows that are soaps that are still on the air. But, it was a lot of very hard work. It's also a hard thing to write a show like that, again, because you're turning out a lot of content in a very short period of time.
Louise Shaffer is on the line with us. Louise Shaffer, Emmy Award-winning star of Ryan's Hope, and later one of the writers of Ryan's Hope. Louise is one of the 4 dozen alumni of Ryan's Hope that our other guest this hour, Tom Lisanti, interviewed for his latest book, Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap. Ryan's Hope, An Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap, available wherever books are sold through Kensington Press. You can also find it at Amazon.com, wherever books are sold online. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. This portion of TV Confidential is brought to you by Prison Fit. Prison Fit, a new, comprehensive, and integrated approach to exercise, food, and employment that was developed by prisoners, for prisoners, parolees, and anyone else listening to this program who would like to improve their overall health and well-being. You can learn more about Prison Fit by going to prisonfitlife.com. Prison Fit's mission is to create work, programs and partnerships that will provide both incarcerated inmates and released or paroled individuals with meaningful employment, training, rehabilitation, and reentry opportunities while treating them with dignity and respect. Prison Fit's main program, Introduction to Small Business, not only has graduated more than 500 in-prison students, but has produced a 2-year released graduate recidivism rate of 6.7%. Prison Fit will expand its Introduction to Small Business program on a statewide basis in 2025, and this is where you can help. Prison Fit is conducting a Kickstarter campaign throughout the month of January 2025 to offer the public various fitness publications and products. The proceeds from this campaign will not only complete and launch these publications and products, but will provide the necessary resources for Prison Fit's statewide in-prison Introduction to Small Business course. For more information, go to prisonfitlife.com and click on the Go to Kickstarter button. That's prisonfitlife.com. Click on the Go to Kickstarter button. prisonfitlife.com. Click on the Go to Kickstarter button, or go to kickstarter.com and search for Prison Fit.
This is Irene Sue, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
I want to circle back to something we talked about before, or it touches on something we talked about before. I understand the camaraderie between the actors on the show was almost like a family, partially because you had to work as hard as you did to create new content 5 days a week, but also, because there's a lot of there's very much a stage or theater vibe because the show is based in New York and you had a lot of New York actors. Louise, what was that your experience? And then Tom, you comment on that as well.
Well, I would say it was more like being in the trenches in World War II. I mean, your survival of the day depended on, the person that you were working with or the people that you were working with. And there was no kidding around, particularly in the beginning when I first went on Ryan's. We didn't shoot in segments. We shot the show straight through, and you really had to end at the end. I mean, there wasn't a lot of overtime, and yes, they would every once in a while they would rework a shot. They'd reshoot something, but they pretty much wanted you to get in and out of there on time. So it wasn't like you had 48 takes on something. You kind of had to get it done once. So that gave it a certain, how do I say this politely, urgency. And you were bonded by blood with the people you were working with. It was a lot of sink or survive.
Tom, you want to elaborate on that, or?
I should say I think it was like that at the beginning, more family amongst the cast, because Claire Labine and Paul Mayer were not only the creators of the show, they were also the head writers and the executive producers. So I think they created a family-type atmosphere. I mean, I heard from the people I interviewed, Claire just loved the actors and loved to be loved, and Paul sort of was like the business part of it, and he had to do like a lot of the dirty work, firing actors or giving them suggestions about various things. But that first core group with starting with Helen Gallagher, who we just recently passed away, as Maid Ryan, and Bernie Barrow as Johnny Ryan, were the core of the show. They were like the tentpole characters. And it sounds like off stage and on stage, they were looked up to and totally respected because of their great careers. And then the first, there was Kate Mulgrew, Michael Hawkins, Eileen Kristen, Michael Levin, Malcolm Groom, the first Ron Held, Roger Coleridge, Nancy Addison is Gillian Coleridge, Dave Catlin is Dave Coleridge, the rich family that was best friends with the working class Ryan. And a lot of the actors had known each other. I mean, Eileen and Malcolm worked together on Grease. Eileen was off stage. He was friends with Nancy before he started the show. So I think a lot of that camaraderie was at the very beginning. However, as you go into the book, you find out sometimes they kind of like became a clique, and new people who came aboard were not first welcomed into that clique. And a lot of, there are comments of people saying that, even though Helen in the book says we were the most welcoming cast on daytime, some of the people that she worked with had other thoughts about that.
No. In the very beginning when I first came on, if Claire liked some work that you'd done, you'd get a bouquet of flowers delivered to your apartment. I mean, it was that kind of, you were quite right, Tom, it was that kind of close-knit situation, which did kind of disintegrate, particularly after ABC, and I know you address this a lot in your book, particularly after ABC became the owners of the show.
Right.
Would Claire give you a bouquet of roses would she do the same thing after a script that you wrote? They got really good response, or did she only give you a bouquet of roses for your work as an actress?
I never got a bouquet as a writer. I don't know what happened to other writers, but...
The other thing they used to do is they used to give, if somebody was leaving the show, they would have a party and give them a little something from Tiffany's, which was good. But I found out that even when the person was fired, they would want to give them a party and a going-away gift. And then eventually, some of the actors were like, no, why am I going to celebrate me being fired? I don't want a party. And that stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really not up for going to my own way.
On the line with us are Louise Shaffer and Tom Lisanti. Louise is among the 4 alumni of Ryan's Hope that Tom Lisanti interviewed for his latest book, Ryan's Hope, an oral history of daytime's groundbreaking soap. Louise and Tom will stay with us for another segment. We hope you'll stay with us as we continue our conversation here on TV Confidential.